What if I told you that your favorite, most reliable fishing spot is probably the reason you're not catching fish? It sounds crazy, I know. We all have those spots that we trust, the ones that have produced for us in the past. But today, we're going to talk about a hard truth. Fish don't care about your memories. They only care about what's happening right now. In this video, I'm going to reveal the massive difference between fishing where fish should be and fishing where they actually are. And I promise you, understanding this single concept is more valuable than any fancy lure in your tackle box. This is the secret to why a handful of anglers seem to catch fish consistently, while the rest of us just get lucky sometimes. So think about it. How many times has a can't-miss spot completely let you down? Let me know in the comments. For generations, we've been taught to look for fishy spots. We read the books, we watched the shows, and they all point to the same things: points, drop-offs, weed lines, and submerged timber. And don't get me wrong, that's good information. That's where fish should be. The problem is that it has become a kind of autopilot for most of us. We motor straight to the big point on the map, because that's what you're supposed to do in the summer. We pound the same laydown log for hours because it looks perfect. This habit is comfortable. It feels like we're doing the right thing. But what we fail to account for are the dozens of variables that change every single day, every single hour. We're fishing a static map, but the fish are living in a dynamic, constantly changing world. Breaking this habit is the first and most important step to becoming a more reactive and successful angler. Let's start with the most common mistake, something every single one of us has done. I call it the memory trap. Picture this. You're heading out on the water, and you have a destination locked in your mind. It's that beautiful submerged tree where you caught a monster 5-pounder last spring. You remember every detail, the cast, the fight, the satisfaction. So you go right back there, filled with confidence. You spend an hour, maybe two, casting to the exact same spot from the exact same angle, but nothing happens, not a single bite. The problem is, you're not fishing the lake as it is today. You're fishing a memory from a year ago. The conditions are different. The bait fish have moved, and that trophy base from last year is long gone. Relying on past glory is one of the fastest ways to guarantee an empty live well. The fish don't remember that spot was good. They only know where the food and comfort are right now, at this very moment. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the first step to becoming more consistent. Next up is the textbook fallacy. This is closely related to fishing memories, but it's about fishing where the books and magazines say you should. We've all seen the diagrams. In summer, bass are on deep offshore structure. In spring, they're in shallow spawning flats. While these are great general guidelines, they are not unbreakable laws. A week of unseasonably cold, rainy weather in July can push bass shallow, right when the textbook says they should be deep. A sudden warm spell in early spring might move them out to the first drop-off, instead of keeping them on the bank. The fish haven't read the same books we have. They react purely to instinct and their environment. When you go to a spot just because it's the classic type of structure for that season, without confirming any signs of life, you are fishing a theory, not reality. True skill is about knowing the textbook rules and then knowing when the fish are breaking them. So, what's the first thing you should be looking for instead? Let's talk about reading the weather, not just for today, but for the last 3 days. Fish are incredibly sensitive to change. A stable weather pattern, even if it's hot and sunny for 3 or 4 days, will often lead to predictable fishing. The fish get into a routine, but a major weather front, especially a cold front, can completely change the game overnight. Imagine you had a great day of fishing yesterday, and then a storm rolls through. Today, you go back to the same spots, but they're a ghost town. That's because the post-frontal, high-pressure conditions have likely pushed those fish tight to cover, made them suspend, or shut down their feeding entirely. They might only be 10 feet from where they were yesterday, but their mood and position are completely different. Don't fish today based on yesterday's weather. Fish based on the trend. Let's dig a little deeper into that with barometric pressure. This is a factor many weekend anglers ignore, but it's a huge deal. You and I barely notice a pressure change. Maybe our joints ache a little. But for a fish, it's a big deal because of their swim bladder. Think of it like a balloon inside them. When the pressure drops before a storm, that balloon expands, and they often feel more comfortable and feed aggressively. This is why the fishing can be amazing right before a front hits. But when the pressure skyrockets after a front, with those clear bluebird skies, their swim bladder gets squeezed. It's uncomfortable for them. This is often why they'll tuck into the thickest cover they can find or suspend over deep water, not wanting to move or chase a meal. A falling barometer often means aggressive, roaming fish. A rapidly rising barometer often means tight-lipped, hunkered-down fish. It's a simple rule that can save you hours of frustration. Now let's consider something that changes minute by minute: sunlight and shadows. This is especially critical in clear water. Fish, particularly predators like bass or pike, are ambush hunters. They use shadows and low-light conditions to their advantage. Picture a boat dock on a sunny day. The fish aren't just randomly under it. They are positioned in the darkest, sharpest shadow lines, waiting for baitfish to swim by. Now let's say the clouds roll in. Suddenly those sharp shadow lines disappear. The entire area is now in a low-light condition. Those same fish will often pull out from under the dock and roam the perimeter, feeling more confident and hidden. If you keep casting only to the darkest spot under the dock, after the clouds have arrived, you're now fishing where they were 5 minutes ago, not where they are now. Always be aware of how the sun's position and cloud cover are changing the underwater landscape of light and shadow. Beyond the weather in the sky, the water itself is talking to you. We'll start with the most obvious factor: water temperature. Every species of fish has a preferred temperature range where they are most comfortable and most active. For largemouth bass, this is roughly between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. They will actively seek out these zones. In early spring, the north-facing shore of a lake gets the most sun and will warm up first. That's where the active fish will be. In the heat of summer, the surface temperature might be 85 degrees, which is too hot. The fish will then retreat deeper to find that cooler, more comfortable water. A simple surface temperature gauge can be one of the most powerful tools in your boat. Don't just look for structure. Look for structure that is in the correct temperature zone. A perfect-looking rock pile in water that's too hot or too cold is just an empty rock pile. Let's touch on a related concept: the thermocline. A lot of anglers hear this term and think it's a magical line in the water where all the fish live. That's not quite right. The thermocline is a layer where the water temperature changes rapidly, separating the warmer, oxygen-rich upper layer from the colder, oxygen-poor deep water. Fish generally won't go below the thermocline because there's not enough oxygen for them to breathe. So, it's not a fish magnet, it's a floor. It tells you the maximum depth you should be fishing. If your sonar shows the thermocline is at 25 feet, there is almost no point in dropping your lure down to 40 feet. The fish simply can't live there. Knowing the depth of the thermocline eliminates a huge amount of unproductive water and helps you focus on the zones where the fish have to be. Another crucial water-related factor is clarity. The visibility of the water dramatically changes how fish position themselves and how they feed. Let's imagine you're at a lake that's normally very clear. The fish are spooky. They hold on deep structure and can see your lure from a long way off, giving them time to inspect it. You might need long casts with light line and natural colored baits. But then, a heavy rain comes and muddies up a major creek arm. The water visibility drops to less than a foot. The fish in that muddy water will behave completely differently. They can't see predators, so they'll move much shallower and hold very tight to cover like logs or rocks, using their other senses to feed. They'll also be less picky and more likely to strike a noisy, brightly colored lure that they can detect. Fishing the clear part of the lake and the muddy part of the lake on the same day is like fishing two completely different bodies of water. Okay, but the biggest clue of all is what the fish are eating. Let's talk about the number one rule. Follow the baitfish. You can have the most perfect-looking underwater ledge in the world, but if there's no food on it, the predators won't be there for long. They're not sentimental. They go where the groceries are. Instead of starting your day by looking at the map for structure, start by idling around and looking at your electronics for clouds of bait. Pay attention to the surface. Are you seeing schools of shad flickering? Are bluegills stacked up around a specific dock? The predators will never be far away. If you find a huge school of baitfish suspended in the middle of a creek channel over 50 feet of water, guess where the base are? They're not on the textbook Rocky Point 100 yards away. They are right there, suspended with their food source. Finding the bait is 9/10 of the battle. Let's expand on that. You don't always need a $50,000 fish finder to locate signs of life. You just need to use your eyes and ears. Get in the habit of constantly scanning the water and the shoreline. Are herons or other wading birds standing in a particular shallow area? They're there because the small fish are there. Are you seeing gulls or terns diving at the water's surface out in the open? They are attacking schools of baitfish being pushed up from below by predators. Do you see a spot on the water's surface that looks nervous or is shimmering differently than the water around it? That's likely a school of baitfish just below the surface. A single splash in the back of a cove could be a bass chasing a shad. These are all real-time clues telling you exactly where life is happening right now. A quiet, dead-looking piece of cover is just that. Dead. Go to where the action is. Now for a factor that many anglers misunderstand, the wind. A lot of people hate fishing in the wind. It's hard to control the boat, it's hard to cast, and it's uncomfortable. So they instinctively run to a calm, protected cove. In most cases, this is the worst thing you can do. Wind is your friend. Think about what it does. It pushes the warm surface water across the lake, and that water piles up on the wind-blown bank. More importantly, it pushes the plankton, which is the base of the food chain. The baitfish follow the plankton, and the predator fish follow the baitfish. That wind-blown point or bank is now a concentrated feeding zone. The wind also breaks up the water's surface, which makes fish less spooky because they can't see you as well. It creates a current in the lake, and fish will almost always position themselves facing into that current, waiting for food to be washed to them. So next time it's windy, don't hide from it. Fish right in it. Let's also talk about the pressure we, the anglers, create. This is a huge factor, especially on popular public lakes. Let's go back to that perfect main lake point. It's perfect on the map, and every angler with a boat knows it. On any given Saturday, that point might get fished by 20, 30, or even 50 different boats. They're all throwing the same popular lures. The fish that live there aren't stupid. They either become conditioned to ignore those lures, or they simply move away to a less pressured area. Your secret spot is probably not a secret. The more obvious and easy to find a piece of structure is, the more fishing pressure it receives. And heavy pressure is one of the fastest ways to turn a great spot into a dead zone. The fish might still live nearby, but they won't be actively feeding on the most obvious part of the structure during the busiest times. This leads us to the community hole effect. Every lake has them. It's that one spot everyone knows about and everyone fishes. And sure, sometimes fish are caught there, which just reinforces the cycle. But for the most part, the fish in these community holes are the most educated, most difficult to catch fish in the entire lake. They've seen every crankbait, every plastic worm, every jig imaginable. An amateur angler might spend half their day on a spot like this, catching nothing, and assume the fish just aren't biting. But a savvy angler knows that the active feeding fish are likely somewhere else. They're on the little secondary point nobody bothers with, or they're tucked under a random isolated piece of cover that doesn't show up on any map. By avoiding the community holes, you're avoiding the most pressured and least responsive fish in the system. So, how do you combat this? You have to think like a predator and be unpredictable. Look at a map of your lake. See the most obvious, classic-looking spots? Now look for the opposite. Look for the small, insignificant-looking stuff. Is there a single isolated stump on an otherwise barren flat? Is there a tiny patch of rock on a long sandy shoreline? Is there a small ditch or drain that runs into the lake that most people would ignore? These are the places that hold unpressured fish. Also think about timing. If everyone fishes the main lake points on Saturday morning, try fishing them on a Tuesday afternoon. Or try fishing the ugly stuff that everyone else drives past. The biggest fish often get big because they are smart enough to avoid the obvious high-traffic areas. You need to be just as smart to find them. So how do you put this all together in a practical way? Let's talk about the 5-minute rule. This is a mental discipline that can revolutionize your fishing. When you pull up to a spot, whether it's a textbook spot or one you found based on current conditions, give it your best shot for a limited time. For a small target like a single log, 5 minutes might be enough. For a larger area like a long weed edge, maybe it's 15 minutes. But set a clock. During that time, be thorough. Use a search bait to cover water, then maybe a slower bait to pick it apart. But if you don't get a bite, or at least see some sign of life like baitfish scattering, then you must have the discipline to leave. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, just one more cast. The fish are either there and active, or they're not. Wasting hours on a dead spot is the single biggest time waster in fishing. This move and groove mentality is what separates the pros from the weekend guys. It's about gathering information. Every spot you fish, even if you don't get a bite, is giving you a clue. Let's say you fish 3 rocky points in a row and get nothing. But then you make a few casts along a shady vertical bluff wall and immediately catch a fish. What did you just learn? You learned that, on this day, under these conditions, the fish are not relating to points. They're relating to vertical structure in the shade. That's a pattern. Now you can ignore all the other points on the lake and spend your time specifically looking for more shady bluff walls. You're no longer guessing. You are using real-time information to build a repeatable pattern for the day. Your first hour on the water shouldn't be about catching a limit. It should be about finding that first piece of the puzzle. Let's bring technology into this. Your electronics are not just for seeing the bottom. They are your underwater eyes for seeing what is happening right now. Before you even make a cast on a spot, you should be using your sonar to confirm that there is life there. Are you marking baitfish? Are you marking what look like bigger fish, the arches, near that bait or structure? If you idle over a beautiful underwater hump and your screen is completely blank, why would you waste your time fishing it? The fish are telling you, with their absence, that this is not the place to be. Conversely, if you're idling across a seemingly boring flat bottom and your screen suddenly lights up with bait and big arches, you need to stop. That is where the fish are, regardless of what the spot looks like on the map. Trust your electronics over your memory every single time. Let's talk about adjusting on the fly. You might develop a great pattern in the morning. Let's say you're catching fish on a white spinnerbait along windy banks. You're feeling great. But then, by noon, the wind dies, the sun comes out, and the bite completely stops. The mistake is to keep throwing that spinnerbait, thinking the fish just turned off. They didn't turn off. They just changed their address and their appetite. The new conditions, no wind, high sun, have likely pushed them tighter to cover and deeper. Now is the time to switch to a completely different tactic. Maybe you need to pick up a finesse worm and slowly fish the shady side of a deep boat dock. The ability to recognize that the conditions have changed and to completely abandon a pattern that is no longer working is a high-level skill. Don't be stubborn. The lake is telling you it's time for a change. Here is a simple mental checklist you can use before you even leave the dock. First, what has the weather been doing for the last 3 days? Is it stable, or has a front just passed? Second, what is the water temperature and clarity? Is it warming or cooling? Clear or muddy? Third, what is the primary forage in this lake, and where should that forage be right now? Are the shad spawning? Are the bluegills guarding their beds? By thinking through these 3 things, you can already build a much better game plan than just saying, I'm going to go fish the dam. You're creating a hypothesis. Because a cold front just passed and the water is clear, I bet the base will be tight to deep brush piles. Now you have a starting point based on current reality, not on a memory from last year. Finally, let's put it all together. Being a good angler isn't about having a secret lure or a secret spot. It's about being a better detective. It's about showing up to the lake with a completely open mind, ready to observe and react. Your goal for the day is to solve a puzzle. The clues are the wind, the sun, the water temperature, the clarity, and the location of the bait. Your textbook knowledge and your memory spots are just the starting points for your investigation, not the final answer. The fish are always somewhere. They are always doing something for a reason. Your job is to forget where they should be and put all of your energy into figuring out where they are and why they are there. When you make that mental shift, fishing stops being a game of luck and starts being a game of skill, and that's when it gets really fun. So, let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot, but the core idea is incredibly simple. Stop fishing on autopilot. Stop letting your memories or the fishing magazines dictate your every move. The single biggest breakthrough you can have is to shift your mindset from a passive fisherman to an active hunter. The aha moment isn't finding a new lure. It's realizing that the lake is a living, breathing puzzle that changes every single day. The most important question you can ask on the water is not, where should the fish be? It's, what are the conditions telling me right now? This changes everything. It means you're no longer a victim of a bad day of fishing. You're an investigator looking for clues. And when you find them, you'll feel a sense of satisfaction that is far greater than just getting lucky on an old honey hole. Thank you so much for watching. If this video helped you look at things differently, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that cuts through the noise. Now, for the final question. What's the one obvious sign on the water that you've probably been ignoring? Let's share some knowledge in the comments below.